A lot of drafts today, and we're going to give a lot of draft advice. Welcome, everybody, to Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM, the sportsbook born in Vegas. We are pumped to be talking to you right now on this Tuesday afternoon with a lot of drafts coming up for all of us. In fact, we have a draft at 4 p.m. We're going to be competing against each other in the FFT League. I am Adam Azer with Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg. Dave, you have the second pick in this three-receiver PPR league. Who are you going to take?
Do you think Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt makes it that far?
Not at this point, no.
No. I love Bijan Robinson. I love Jamar Chase. I figure whoever's picking first is going to take one of those guys. I will take the other of those guys.
Jamey, you have the 9th pick in the draft. Who are you going to take?
You know, probably for the 28th time, I'll get Christian McCaffrey unless you're picking in front of me. It could be him. It could be Justin Jefferson. Could be Nico Collins. Could be Ashton Genty. You never know.
Hold on. You're picking after Jamey in round one?
So as of now, I have the 11th pick. Dan Schneier has the right to swap picks with me if he wants it. He has the 8th pick. So I don't know yet.
You see what he just did? He just figured out how he could get his hands on McCaffrey by asking you about it.
No, it doesn't matter because he just looks at my rankings anyway, and that's how he picks. He just goes straight down the line. It's very frustrating to pick after or before Adam or anywhere near Adam because that's all he does.
I would be surprised if I didn't come away with a running back and a wide receiver with the 11th overall pick and then the 14th overall pick. So that will be what I set out to do. I definitely won't go RB. I might go I keep going like Neighbors Thomas. I did that from 10 or 11 one draft, so I might do that. All right. Today on the show, last minute fantasy advice and some buy or sell and your questions at Ask FFT on Twitter a little bit later. We're going to start with Dave's. Dave, I told you on the podcast this morning, I'm having some friends over for the draft tonight, and I already took your advice. I'm going to make this joke again. I bought the dip and the chips. But buy the dip is one of your pieces of last-minute advice, Dave.
And we can really give this advice now because the NFL season's about to start, and we've had a full summer of drafting and seeing where these players are going. And at the beginning of the summer, Puka Nacua was a top 10 pick. Devontae Adams was a top 30 pick. Devon Achane was a top 10 pick. All three of these guys have fallen because of injuries either to themselves in the case of Achane, to the quarterback in the case of Matthew Stafford and the receivers there. But Stafford's ready to go week one. Achane looks like he's on track to be ready to go week one. And those are just three names. There's a lot of names later on in the draft who's had some injury news that isn't good, but things have changed recently, and the ADP hasn't adjusted yet. Darnell Mooney, Jawan Jennings, literally back at practice on Monday for the 49ers. That's a good thing. Godwin, looks like he did avoid the PUP list. He might be back sooner than expected. Khalil Shakir, Najee Harris is back. Cam Scadaboo is back. Quinshon Judkins, it's not an injury, but he's expected to be back with Cleveland soon. These are all guys that you're going to be able to get at depressed values in your drafts today, all the way through kickoff on Thursday. You might as well take advantage.
Yeah, Jamey, we brought up last month that Jahmyr Gibbs had 2 soft tissue injuries in preseason last year. And I think it was certainly understandable to downgrade him in drafts, but he ended up being ready for week one, and he ended up being not RB1 per game, but RB1 overall because Barkley sat week 18, obviously had a great season. But I also think, just on the other side of this, I do think that we should exercise some caution with, let's just take Puka Nacua because of Matthew Stafford, and Devon Achane. He's got a calf injury. He's got some injury history. We're not necessarily back to where we were with those guys, are we?
I don't think you can be in the case of Stafford and his situation because it's not like he got a new back and he's fine. Like, this could still be an issue that creeps up at some point during the season. And we continue to get, I saw some emails today about Devon Achane and the calf situation. Is it Christian McCaffrey all over again? Is it, a lot of NBA fans obviously saw what happened with Kevin Durant and Tyrese Halliburton and Jason Tatum over the last couple of years, with these, Achilles injuries. So it could still be a problem, or calf injuries that become Achilles injuries. It still could be something that creeps up at some point during the season. But I think if you're just looking at it from the standpoint of what you're getting for maybe where they were, you're looking at Achane was a first-round pick, and now you're getting him in round 2, and et cetera, et cetera. So I think just in the case of some of these guys that are injury concerns, like last, I don't know if you're going to bring this up, but, last year, Jahmyr Gibbs, we had the injury worries. It was Kyron Williams who was getting really pushed down draft boards last year because he was going to do punt returns, and we had that stupid story. So I think it's, kind of case by case, and how you probably felt about these players before the news happened. You know, so if you were in on Quinshon Judkins and now you're going to get him at such a cheap cost. If you were in on obviously the Rams receivers, you're getting them at a reduced price. Tyreek Hill, you know, based on his injury situation, you know, going to be, you know, playing week 1. It goes all down the line. And then there's the, you know, flip side of it. You know, when you drafted, you know, should you panic if you took somebody, let's say like a Patrick Mahomes, because you thought you're going to have a Rashee Rice for the entire season, or maybe only missing 3 or 4 games, and now you don't have him for the first 6 games. So that goes both ways. I think just in the case of getting some of these superstars at better prices, it's definitely a good way to win your league.
All right, so would you take Achane or Puka first?
I would take Puka first.
I would too.
Would you take Achane or Josh Jacobs?
I go back and forth on those. I think there's more upside with Achane, but they are now back-to-back. Originally, Achane was ahead of Saquon Barkley for me. That's how much I liked him prior to the calf injury.
I've got Achane 1 spot ahead of Jacobs if it's full PPR. Non-PPR, it's easy to go with Jacobs over Achane.
Would you take Puka or Neighbors Brian Thomas Jr.?
I had Neighbors and Brian Thomas Jr. ahead of Puka a long time ago, so I would stick with those guys.
But I did not, and I originally had Puka, at least in full PPR, ahead of both of those wide receivers, and now I don't because I'm a little bit worried, I guess, about the Stafford issue. But also, I know I can get Puka Nacua after those guys if I wanted to.
And would you go with like a guac, salsa, a French onion dip? We're talking specific dips, Dave. What's your choice?
How fresh is the guac?
I'm going to the store right now. I'm getting everything is super fresh.
I would go with guac. Definitely get a little bit of fresh salsa as well. And don't forget to get some hot sauce to put in both.
Okay. No thanks. On the side. All right. Dave's last minute advice number 2. Take a peek at weeks 1 and 2. Why not? So, Dave, let's talk about this. What does this mean? Take a peek at weeks 1 and 2.
So this is more of a tiebreaker. If you're debating between a couple of players and you just want to figure out, all right, which one do I want more? Look and see how their schedule begins. Do they have easy matchups? Do they have tough matchups? And use that as the tiebreaker. And I have a couple examples on something like this. Chuba Hubbard over Breece Hall. Now, both of them in ADP, I know how you feel about Breece Hall. You would never take Breece Hall over Chuba Hubbard. But look at our ADP. A lot of people have them neck and neck. And I get it because Breece Hall still has the upside to be good when things are right in New York. I don't know how right they are. But because they're close in ADP, I went and I looked at it and I saw the schedule first 4 weeks of the season. You know how great defense is. I've got Carolina with one of the most favorable running back schedules that you could ask for, whereas the Jets are struggling along. So that's one where I would lean toward Chuba over Breece Hall. How about another one? This is one we've debated a lot. Ladd McConkey and T. Higgins. Those two guys, they always seem to be right there at the 2-3 turn. Which one is better? I've got McConkey over Higgins, and it's because of the schedule. I think the Chargers' schedule early on, a little bit better than Cincinnati's. I know the volume will probably be there for T. Higgins. It might make sense for him to be the guy in that regard. But if you want to use a tiebreaker, that's what you should do. Go to the schedule. You can get a grid online just like I've got and just look at the matchups for the first couple of weeks. Jerry Jeudy has a very tough week 1 matchup. After that, it does get a little bit easier. He's in a wrong division for this. But against Denver in week 1, I don't want to
that's
start.
Calvin Ridley.
It's Calvin Ridley. What did I say? Jerry Jeudy?
Yeah, Jerry Jeudy has the matchup.
Yeah. Judy's got the matchup. Ridley's got a really tough one in week 1. It is against Denver. I'm sorry about that. But now you know that if you draft Calvin Ridley, it's great. I still love him. I think he's going to have good volume. But I don't know if he's necessarily startable in week 1 against Denver.
You should get another grid of the roster so you know which players.
Right. I talk about players all the time. Sometimes I get a name wrong or a team wrong. We all do.
Yeah, for sure. Now, if you ask me who's on bye in week 8, I don't know. But Dave knows. Beware of the week 8 bye-nado.
Let's see if we can get this right. Arizona, Detroit, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Seattle, and the Rams. We got it right because I wrote it down. But those 6 teams are on bye. This is going to be the first real test for fantasy managers over the course of the year. And there's a lot of really good players on those teams. And I found when I draft, I end up getting a lot of players that are going to be on bye in week 8. And I know that week 8, it seems like a year from now, but it's really 8 weeks from now. And if you want to have a headache later on in the season, then draft these guys and then do nothing about it. But it's just something to kind of just keep an eye out for. I don't mind getting 2 guys with the same bye week, but 3, especially if they're all going to be in my starting lineup, I feel like that's something that you could avoid doing if you can.
Jamey, you feel the same way?
I never look at the bye weeks.
Really?
I don't. Quarterback, if I'm taking 2 quarterbacks, that's the only time I look at it. And kicker and defense, if I have to draft those 2, I don't want to have the same bye week because I'd have to deal with 2 transactions that week. So
Oh,
I try
okay.
to avoid that.
You're not drafting 2 kickers or 2
I'm not
defenses.
drafting
It's
the
one
kicker
of
and
each.
DST on the same
Got
bye
it.
week. The reason I don't really care about bye weeks is because my roster, for the most part, is going to change, in some cases, dramatically by the 8th week of the season. A lot of people ask us about week 14 and those buys. If I have to make trades to cover myself, if I love the player and I love my roster and I love the way it is, I'll figure it out.
You can always figure it out
Yeah.
later. It's just work, and some people don't want to put in that kind of work. So if you're one of those people, maybe you're not a diehard fantasy manager, okay, that's fine. I don't know why you're watching us if you're not a diehard fantasy manager, but
The remote is broken. They got stuck on this.
Maybe so.
Yeah.
No days off. Put in the work.
Yes, we do
Especially-
365 days a year.
Especially if you're at UNC. All right, we're going to take a break. We're going to get Jamey's last-minute draft advice when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. Back on Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Adam, Dave, and Jamey here. We're talking last-minute draft advice. I am currently trying to get an auctioneer for my draft tonight. If you guys were just trying to get an auctioneer who'd had no fantasy football experience, give me a job description for the auctioneer. What does the auctioneer have to do? How do I sell this?
You should give them money first.
I'm giving them food.
Or at least
Giving
the
them
wing flavor of their
You
choice.
should give them food.
food, yes.
And then you just tell them that they just have to manage a group of adults, I assume it's all adults, in a way that they can express what they need to purchase and count that down.
Find somebody
They have to
who's
think-
ever seen an auction before and say, can you do what that guy in the front of the room does?
Yeah, get that micro machine guy.
no.
Get
They're
the
not going to be,
micro
hey,
machine
I got
guy.
$5, I got $4, I got 4 6, I got $6, I got 6 over here. They're not going to be doing that. They're just going to be saying, going once, going
I
twice.
think he just
sold.
found his auctioneer.
Well,
it
he
should be
doesn't,
you.
he doesn't want to do it again. Here's what you should do. And you can mark the tape to show him. Have Dan Schneider do it as a way to make up for cheating. And so he just comes to your house, and all's good.
He said he did express interest in doing that. but
Or
I think it's a little too
the
last minute.
perfect solution would be just call Nando.
Yeah, he wouldn't do that. All right. Let's get now, Jamey's going to say that I don't need his last-minute draft advice. He's going to say, oh, you're going to just use my rankings anyway. You don't need my advice. But that's not true. I use everyone's rankings. In fact, we now have the consensus rankings option in our draft room on CBS Sports. But Jamey's 3 tips. Number 1 is get your guys. Screw ADP.
Yes, screw ADP. ADP is a great blueprint of what you want to look at to see how all the drafts are going. But it's your draft. You want to make sure you're getting the player that you want. You want to make sure you're getting the guy that you're going to have to manage the entire season. So, for example, I like Trevion Henderson a lot. I don't care that he's going in the 4th or in some cases the 5th round. I'm taking him in round 3. I'm taking RJ Harvey in round 4. I don't care that he's going in round 5. And the guy that Adam tries to steal from me all the time, which is why I know he's using my rankings, is Braylon Allen, who goes in like round 12.
Oh.
And you can get him in round 9 if you really want to because it's your team. So if you don't want to take a player, let somebody else take them. But if you have an inkling of a player that you think is going to have a breakout season, Dave likes Keon Coleman, for example. He's not waiting for average draft position to take him. Tyler Warren is somebody you're taking ahead of his average draft position. If you love a player and you think they're going to have a breakout season, I don't care what average draft position says. Go get your player.
But you don't want to be a knucklehead about it. Like, I love Keon Coleman. I'm not going to take him in the 3rd round or the 4th
No,
round.
it's obviously not to. You made the joke. You're not taking Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt 2nd overall because
Right.
you think he's going to be great. I know you don't, but you made the joke about it. It's obviously within reason. And so whatever you think the range of the players should go in, and the second part of this will be, tiering your players. So when you start to see the tier of guys that you think are in a certain range, then you reach for that player if you, again, feel a certain way about it. So I think it always comes down to, yes, ADP should be somewhat of a guide for you, but if it says player number 100 and it's pick number 80 and you see that guy come up on whatever rank list you're following, again, Adam follows mine, then you take that guy that you really want because you want to make sure you get him on your roster.
Do you think a good rule of thumb would be it's okay to reach 2 rounds earlier than ADP, but no more than that?
I wouldn't necessarily lock myself into that because,
Right.
Again, Dave is screaming to the rafters, Keon Coleman's going to be great this year. If there is Team Dave, and they only look at, Dave's in a draft with 11 other people that are looking at his rankings, well, they know that he has him ranked 2 rounds ahead or, 50 picks ahead of whatever his average draft, but I don't know what the number is.
It's not quite 50.
But
it's high.
But you get the point. Like, he's going to have to make some sort of aggressive move. And if there's 12 people that are following Heath's rankings and only Heath's rankings, then they're going to see DeAndre Swift goes in a certain spot, or they're going to see these players that Heath likes, that he knows that Jaden Daniels is his number 1 quarterback, whatever the case may be. Again, I think you just have to, your personal feelings about certain players, don't let whatever a rank list, an average draft position list, anybody that's telling you, if you believe that player is going to break out, get them on your team, because the last thing you want to do is watch that player go off on somebody else's roster.
Yeah. All right. Number 2 tip from Jamey here. Tier your rankings. Have some sort of plan.
So I don't think everybody has to go out and make their own rankings. If you like Dave's rankings, my rankings, Heath's rankings, whatever site you play on, take that rank list and start to make tiers. And what that will tell you is, okay, I love all of the top 5 quarterbacks. If I get Lamar Jackson or Jalen Hurts, I'm fine with it. But know that when that player starts to come off the board in that tier, you want to make sure you're going to be a little bit more aggressive in drafting that particular tier of players. So I want to get a top 5 quarterback. I see Lamar Jackson going round 2 because somebody in my league has to have the quarterback, and then it starts the trickle-down effect. If it gets to you and all the next 4 guys are on the board, you're probably not going to get that guy coming back. Take that quarterback. Every position you could do this with. Just start us. Where does the difference come between RB 23 to RB 30? It might be 23, 24, 25. I'm done. 26, 27, 28. That's the next tier. Whatever the case may be, you make your own tiers based on the rank list that you follow. So Adam, in his bedroom, has a list of my rankings with lines marked off of where he wants to cut off that particular tier. But again, it's not necessarily an overall top 200 list. You could do it this way if you want to. But I think by position, you tier your players. Dave has tiers on CBSSports.com. I have tiers on CBSSports.com. I think Heath does as well. There are tiers all over the place, again, from a variety of sites. Take whatever rank list you want. If you want to really be aggressive with it, make your own rank list. But get those groups of players in some semblance of an order and take somebody from that tier if you feel like that's the spot you need to get one of those particular positions.
I was wondering why my wife's been sleeping on the couch. I didn't have the courage to ask, but I guess it's the Jamey rankings that are laying all over the place. All right, number 3 here is wait on QB. There is value late. So when do you ever take a top 5 quarterback, Jamey?
I've done it more often than I probably give off the impression that it happens. So like I was in the draft last night's keeper league, so it kind of throws off some of where the players are going. But Jalen Hurts was just sitting there in round 3. Now there are Dave, do the math. What's 12 times 4? 48?
48.
There are 48 players gone the minute we start the draft. So round 3, Jalen Hurts was still there. It was like, okay, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. I've taken Joe Burrow a lot over the last several drafts. Dave will tell you this a lot. It's about value. So when you find these guys just continuing to fall, buy the dip, whatever the phrase you want to use, you take advantage of players in your draft falling to certain spots. So I'm not going to pass up a great opportunity to take one of these quarterbacks. But for the most part, especially in the drafts that I do with a lot of analysts, I'm going to wait on the position. So I end up taking a lot of Drake May, a lot of Kyler Murray. You want to take it a step further than that? Jordan Love's a guy that I target. Trevor Lawrence is a guy that I target. Great early season schedule for the Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence hopefully has an opportunity to get off to a great start. And so you can find great players or quality players at the position. And I'll go back to last year. There were 5 quarterbacks that were basically drafted. It was like pick like 97, 98. So let's just say pick 100 overall or later. In the case of a Sam Darnold, was not drafted at all. Baker Mayfield in a lot of leagues was not drafted at all. We saw what Jaden Daniels was able to accomplish. There were 5 quarterbacks in the top 10 based on their points per game that were pick 100 overall or later. So you know what you're getting with the top 5 guys for the most part. We saw what happened to Patrick Mahomes the last 2 seasons. We saw what happened to C.J. Stroud last year. It's not like they're without flaws. But I think if you just wait on the position, depending on how you draft and how comfortable you feel with, hey, Drake May's my starter. I post a lot of my drafts on X, and I get, oh, your quarterback stinks. Mm-hmm. I'm okay with that. I don't think he stinks. I think he's going to be great. I think he's going to be a breakout player. He's a guy I want to go get. Screw ADP. So tie them all together, tier your rankings, get a guy that you want. Forget about what the other rank lists say. Go get your players. And you can wait on the position if you really want to at the quarterback.
And the worst case scenario, let's say Drake May doesn't meet your expectation. He's not that good. You can go to the waiver wire and find another quarterback.
I'm glad you brought that up. So I did a draft. It's our Flex Leagues draft. Adam was the champion in the Best Ball League last year. Jake Seeley of The Athletic does a great job running these different leagues. My quarterback's 4 points per pass touchdowns. I like Justin Fields a lot in that format. I took him as a 7th quarterback off the board. ahead of ADP, ahead of some other, very
Got the guy you wanted.
very quality quarterbacks. At the time, I took as a backup quarterback Anthony Richardson because we did this draft in early August. You know who I'm going to pick up off waivers who did not get drafted in this league? Jared Goff. Again, difference in 4 points versus 6 points, so he's not as, potentially productive. But I'm dropping Anthony Richardson. Imagine this phrase I'm about to say. I'm dropping Anthony Richardson to pick up Jared Goff. That's how some leagues go. Tua will be available. C.J. Stroud will be available. Jordan Love will be available. You're going to see a lot of good quarterbacks on waivers in, trust me, a lot of leagues.
Believe it or not, with Jared Goff, this gets a little lost in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, but over the last 3 years with Detroit, he's basically finished the same in 4-point as he has in 6-point. And that's because of the yards. The passing yards are really important. He's going to be amongst the NFL leaders in passing yards. He's been 4,438 or more passing yards 3 straight years, and that does boost him. So he's been 14th, and 7th per game in 4-point per passing touchdown leagues, 13th, 12th, and 8th per game in 6-point per passing touchdown leagues since joining Detroit. And I just want to give one last stat here to support what Jamey's saying. Over the last 7 seasons, when you look at the 14 quarterbacks that have finished as QB1 or QB2, 8 of them were drafted at QB9 or later. It's unbelievable what kind of value you get. And last year, Joe Burrow was QB7. He was going after C.J. Stroud and Anthony Richardson.
Yeah.
In ADP.
Yeah, you know what? That just tells me that reaching for a quarterback is like the worst thing you can do. And you're going to see that in a lot of drafts in your home leagues where Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson especially go in the first 20 picks. We still hear about those quarterbacks going in round 1 in a 1-quarterback league. It's the biggest mistake you can make because of what we've talked about for like the last 5 minutes.
All right, when we come back, Adam's last-minute draft advice. I'm going to help you win your fantasy league after this. Looking for some more last-minute draft advice? You're going to get it from the guy who doesn't even do rankings, just uses Jamey's rankings all the time, apparently. So I'm going to try to help you out, and we'll see what Dave and Jamey think about my advice. All right, let's start with number 1. So Hero RB has become a really fun, important strategy. It just kind of replaced Zero RB. But I think, guys, this year, Hero wide receiver is better than Hero RB. I think it's more important to get, for me, it's one of the top 8 wide receivers. For you guys, it might be one of the top 10 wide receivers with your first and second pick. By the way, if you don't know what the Hero strategy is, it's basically taking a position, running back or a wide receiver, in round 1 or 2, and then waiting until maybe round 5 or so for your next guy at the position. But to me, there's 2 factors here. The drop-off at wide receiver after the elite guys is bigger than that at running back. I don't want to miss out on the running backs in rounds 3 and 4, specifically a guy like Omarion Hampton or Travion Henderson. You might love Alvin Kamara there. Ken Walker's in there. You might love Chuba Hubbard. I just like those guys better than the wide receivers I'm seeing in that range. Not exclusively, but overall. And then there's the bigger factor, is that the wide receiver position from rounds, let's say 5 through 8, it's just so much better than the running back position. So I think you can afford to take a hero wide receiver and then really just wait on the position. I would say probably not in a 3-receiver league, but you could get away with it. You want to go, Malik Neighbors in round 1, and then your next from rounds 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 8, you're getting Jamison Williams, Calvin Ridley, and Ricky Pearsall, or some players like that. I think you could do worse. That's a better way to go, in my opinion, this year than Hero RB, fellas.
So one of the questions I get a lot is, people ask me, I only like 8 or 9 wide receivers that are at the top of your rankings, but I have an early first-round pick, and Jamar Chase is off the board, and CeeDee Lamb's off the board too. At what point do I say, okay, I'll just stick with getting one of those top 8 receivers and pass over the elite running backs there? And I have a tough time saying to go after the wide receivers because the running backs at the top of the fantasy draft, they're there for a reason. They could put up huge numbers. Bijan Robinson, last year, from week 6 on, he was at 23 PPR points per game almost. We know what Christian McCaffrey is capable of doing. I can't pass up those guys, especially as you get later into round 1 because you're picking earlier in round 2. But I get where you're coming from as far as getting at least one of those stud wide receivers and then building around other positions before coming back to wide receiver in round 5.
I think it's there's like you almost have to like split this up, because if you're picking in the beginning part of the first round and the back end of the first round, you can easily do what you're talking about, Adam, in the back end of the first round, because you're getting a Neighbors, a Thomas, a Brian Thomas Jr., Amon-Ra St. Brown, whoever the case may be, and then you can come back in round 2 and maybe there's a Derrick Henry or a Gentry there, or an Achane or Jacobs, depending on how you want to go about doing it. But I think in a 3-receiver league, you're not going to see the guys that you mentioned in rounds 5, 6, or even 4, 5, and 6. It's going to be a little bit more challenging to see those guys go, because the receivers are going to get pushed up a little bit more, and so you may have to reach for those guys a little bit differently. So I am curious for your take on this based on this strategy, because I know you like 2 guys that go in that round 3, 4 range of Tyreek Hill and Mike Evans. So if you do take a receiver in the first round, and you're sitting there and you see Tyreek and Evans versus, let's say, a Hampton and Ken Walker, 2 guys I think you like, which way are you going?
I'm going Hampton, Evans, Hill, Walker.
Gotcha.
In that order.
Okay. And I think it's important for fantasy managers before they go into the draft to look at the wide receiver position and see, all right, how many of those elite guys do I look at as like slam dunk, 17, 18 PPR point per game wide receivers, and then how many of them are like good starting wide receivers, 15 PPR points per game. And there might be like 30 of those names, and the more of those wide receivers that you like, the higher those numbers are, the more you might be willing to wait on filling those positions. But it does depend on league format.
And I also want to say, Adam just kind of stumbled into one thing that we really have not said, is this is the first like strategy thing that we talked about. You talk about buying the dip, that's on a player. I'm talking about get your guy, whatever. Yep. Adam's talking about a strategy. And then we just posed the situation to him to alter that strategy. Do not be stuck in, I'm only doing hero RB. I'm only doing hero wide receiver. I'm only going 0 RB. I'm only waiting on a quarterback. If something presents itself to you that you are like, I cannot pass this up because I like this player that much, you alter your strategy and you're going to be fine.
You know what the strategy is?
No strategy.
Value.
Yes.
You want to get good value on draft day.
I think the better way that I could have said this was that there's about 25 running backs that I'm comfortable with as my RB2, RB1 or 2, and there's probably close to 40 wide receivers, 36-ish wide receivers that I'd be comfortable with as my wide receiver 2. All right, my second
I just updated
one,
the rankings, though, so make sure that number's...
I'm looking at consensus.
Just checking.
Big guy. My second one is don't be afraid to draft a backup quarterback, even if you drafted a stud. Look, busts happen at every position. It's hard to see Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, or Joe Burrow being a bust. It is hard, but it happens, So if this happens to be a year where we think quarterback is super deep, and if you do draft one of those top 5 quarterbacks, you don't have to draft a second quarterback. Don't worry about it. You don't need to. But if you really like a guy and you think Caleb Williams or Drake May could be a league winner, or CJ Stroud could have that huge bounce back, I don't think he has that kind of upside, or Trevor Lawrence finally breaks out and has a top 5 kind of season. If you think that player is out there, I remember last year, I think in our FFT league, at one point I'm playing Jared Goff over Jalen Hurts. And I didn't draft Jared Goff, but my point is, if you believe in the quarterback, go ahead and get him, even if you have a stud quarterback. You might be able to trade your stud quarterback and then ride your backup quarterback for the rest of the season. And my third one, guys, I think is more interesting, right? It's the Chiefs could make or break fantasy. And I was talking about this with Dave earlier on FFT Express. We don't have a single Chief in the top 48 in average draft position. And that is mind-blowing. It's probably been 7 years since that's been the case. Now, pretty much all of them, except for Rashee Rice, Mahomes, Pacheco, Worthy, Kelsey, they're all pretty much going in round 5 or early round 6. But I see huge potential for this offense. They're going to be more aggressive. They're going to open it up. They're going to throw the ball downfield. I think they're going to try to get back to their roots a little bit. And to be able to get these guys starting in round 5 or late round 4 for Mahomes or something is pretty exciting. So I think the Chiefs could really – I actually don't even know that they could break it, because you're not spending that early of a pick. But I think the Chiefs could definitely make your fantasy team.
Wouldn't you argue that the Chiefs are one of the teams that should be top 10 in just points per game, just scoring in an NFL game, points per game?
They should be.
Right.
They should.
I think the larger takeaway is to draft players from teams that are expected to be high scoring. Because if these teams are going to put up a lot of points, then hello, It means a lot of touchdowns. It means a lot of yardage. It means a lot of catches. It means all the things that are good for fantasy football teams. And so the Chiefs are absolutely one of those teams. And the fact that you are able to get as many as you want starting in round 5, I think that's a great call. But the better takeaway could be, don't go chasing after the teams that might not be top 10 scoring offenses, or maybe just use it as a tiebreaker.
Yeah, or maybe we need to consider that the Chiefs were not a top 10 offense last year.
Right, but they improved their offensive line. I think having Xavier Worthy for a second season is a really good thing. I think their overall receiving core is deeper. I know that no one's really drafting Tyquan Thornton or Hollywood Brown, maybe like a late round pick on him, but I think they're deeper. I think they're healthier. And I think you're right. They want to be more aggressive. I think if it plays out that way, it'll be very good.
Oh, if they would have stayed healthy last year, if Rice was healthy last year and Pacheco's healthy last year.
Oh, yeah, they would have been.
It's a much better offense. And so, offensive line as well. So there's a lot to like about it. But I really don't think we're going to see the best of them until Rice is back, because you're taking away such a big piece of what they can do. But at the same time, it's out of everybody's control, from a fantasy perspective.
Okay. All right, folks, we will be right back with some buy or sell on Fantasy Football Today after this. Welcome back, everybody. This is Fantasy Football Today, presented by BetMGM. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, Jamey Eisenberg, and it is time now for some buy or sell. Here we go. Buy or sell number 1. Now that A.J. Brown is healthy, he should be drafted ahead of Drake London.
So what's the format?
4 points per reception.
Who plays in a 4-point per reception league?
1 point per reception.
I'm still going to take London over AJB if it's full PPR. Half PPR, non-PPR, I'll take Brown.
I'll take London in all formats. I think they're both going to have great seasons, but I'm expecting a little bit more of an ascension for London, because I think Penix is going to unlock another level for him to get to.
I was with you until Darnell Mooney came back for Atlanta, because I think Mooney can be at least as good as he was last year, and that's going to be somebody that takes a few targets away from Drake London. I'm not saying that's going to be the only reason, and I like Drake London a lot. He's going to live off of those targets. But as far as the yards and the touchdowns, I get a little bit worried about him hitting new highs there, whereas A.J. Brown, I feel like that's what he's best at getting.
Yep, fair point.
Oh, the yards especially. He's been on pace for over 1,400 yards all 3 seasons with the Eagles, and Drake London's not even reached 1,300 yards. I'm on Brown here, but it's close. ADP has London ahead of A.J. Brown.
Sure.
All right, buy or sell number 2. Tight end premium is the dumbest thing that's ever happened to fantasy football.
Sell.
Very much so.
It doesn't make any sense. We've played fantasy baseball for years. What have they said? We're going to give catchers 6 points for a home run instead of 4. And every time a catcher steals a base, it's going to count for 3 steals. This is so stupid. I hate tight end premium. I'm so mad that I'm in a tight end premium league. I don't even know if I would have done it because it was for charity. But I resent Heath for making me join a tight end premium league. It is the worst, dumbest thing, 0 cents. Despise it. Make the case for tight end premium, and then I'm not even going to listen, but make it for the other people who might want to listen.
Anti-fun Azer.
Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. I mean, what do you think about 2 QB leagues, which is totally not realistic? NFL teams don't play with 2 quarterbacks at the same time. But it's fun.
Why would we use defensive players? This is so awful. My gosh, it's just terrible to use IDP.
Why aren't kickers worth more? But the point is that you're trying to add value to a position that normally, a couple of players every year, they're awesome, but everybody else at that position, it's just kind of the same. But now you're doing something to make them a little bit more value. It changes the game a little bit. It spices things up a little bit, like hot sauce in the guacamole. Oh. That's the type of thing that makes fantasy fun. And 10 years ago, I don't know if Superflex was even a big deal then. I know tight end premium wasn't a thing then. Think about how fantasy football has mutated, Adam, since we started podcasting, which was more than 10 years ago. It's fun. I love that these things are happening, that the game is changing, and there are so many different variations. You need to embrace change, Adam.
No, I don't need to embrace this change, because here's the problem with it. Tight end premium basically just makes the elite tight ends that much more valuable. it creates an even bigger gap at the position.
But you also draft those guys sooner, which is
Right.
changing how people are going to build the rest of their roster.
It might have you're going to have the exact same gap at the position, Adam, but now the tight end as a whole position gets boosted compared to wide receivers and running backs. And that's what makes it a little bit more challenging when you're drafting.
It's the worst. All right. Buy or sell?
I'm glad we did your buy or sell, not the audience buy or sell.
Buy or sell, Travis Hunter will have 1,000 receiving yards this season, and Travis Hunter hates tight end premium leagues.
Sell and sell.
I think it's a sell for both. That's probably the safe way to go about it.
If I explained to him, oh yeah, no, let's play some fantasy football, but your tight end gets double the points for a catch, he would not play. I know Travis Hunter well enough. He would not play. Buy or sell number 4.
I think
He would probably play.
I think he'd
in a-
absolutely play because he's hyper competitive.
He would play in a tight end premium league and a non-tight end premium league because he likes to do things
Yeah.
both sides of the ledger.
Hey, look, I'll play in an IDP league in a super flex, but a tight end premium is where I
think
draw
I'm going
the
to
line.
change the FFT league to a tight end premium league just to piss you off.
Now that Najee Harris is healthy, we should feel bad about drafting Omarion Hampton in round 3.
Sell.
I feel bad about it or be nervous about it. I'm going to sell on that too. You know, I'm first of all, I'm happy that he's going to be able to play, and I can't help but think that Omarion Hampton has had all of this time to show the Chargers coaching staff what he can do. By all accounts, he had a tremendous training camp. We saw him in the preseason. There were flashes there. He didn't really play that much in the preseason. But I kind of feel like after 4 years in the league, we know what Najee Harris is all about. Omarion Hampton should be a much better running back and someone who can play 3 downs just as effectively as Najee. If I'm getting that guy in round 3 on a team that wants to run the football like the Chargers, I'm okay with it.
I think there's some sneaky catch potential for Hampton. I don't think
I
it's
agree.
like 50 or 60, but I think 40 because Dobbins was on pace for about 40 last year. Hampton can catch the ball. So I don't think he's going to be a complete dud there. I hope anyway. All right, buy or sell number 5. The best format is obviously 12 teams, half PPR, 2 running backs, 2 receivers, 2 flex, and fab.
Is there a tight end in there?
Yeah, tight end, quarterback. Yeah,
How many
yeah,
points
that's
for
the-
tight end catches?
The same, half PPR for everyone.
Okay, I'm just messing around. I'll buy that. I like that league. That sounds fun.
Sure.
Thank you. Okay, good. Thank you. They are not interested in having this dispute. All right, buy or sell number 6. Here's a guy that it's almost like his name has been erased from fantasy. I never mentioned him. Rachaad White will have 50 catches and be a good flex in PPR.
I'll buy the first part and sell the second part. He's had 50 catches every year of his career, including last year when Bucky Irving, became a superstar toward the end of the season. And you're looking at a receiving core that is down potentially 2 guys to start the season in Chris Godwin and Jalen McMillan. So we could see Rachaad White still have a big role in the passing game. And you've heard from people out of Tampa and our own Pete Prisco going there, where they said they don't necessarily want to ramp up Bucky Irving yet until the end of the season. So does that mean Rachaad White in passing downs, obvious passing downs? Does that mean Sean Tucker maybe in some running down situations? I would think it's the former rather than the latter, because why would you take Bucky Irving off the field in what he does best? So Rachaad White, I think, can still get to 50 catches. I don't think he'll do it, but he can. But I don't think he's going to be a flex on a weekly basis, no.
Yeah, he's cheap depth at the running back position in full PPR. And it's got to be full PPR. I wouldn't feel good about him in any other format. And I just checked. He plays New Orleans in week 8. So when there's 6 teams on bye, we're going to be desperate for replacements. In a full PPR league, you might be starting Rachaad White against those Saints.
Actually, I'm changing the FFT league where Rachaad White gets 1.5 points per catch. So
Only him?
only him.
It's a keeper league. I have Rachaad White in round 14. Buy or sell number 7. The Houston and Miami offensive lines are so bad that we should be devaluing their players.
So
I'm selling on Houston. I already feel like we've sold enough on them. I kind of buy it on Miami, just a little bit.
I think the passing attack for the Texans is going to be great.
Yeah.
And they'll hold up enough in pass protection to allow those guys to, perform at a high enough level. So Nico Collins should be a top 5 receiver if he stays healthy. I think Christian Kirk's one of the best values on draft day in any format based on his potential role. I am not even concerned about the Texans' running back situation because I'm not drafting them unless the value is just incredible that I'm getting Nick Chubb, very late.
It's all
Woody
in the
Marks,
double-digit rounds.
Very late. For the Dolphins guys, I think there's just so much upside. I mean, you talked about the Chiefs and their offense, how they could define fantasy. This is a team that could define fantasy. You said on our podcast today, if Tyreek Hill is, you said Tyreek Hill is the last player at his position that could be a top 3 guy. I don't want to, change your words around, but
number 1 wide receiver, number 3 overall type of player.
Dave made the case that if Tyreek is not back to normal, we could get a huge bounce back season from Jalen Waddle, who has 3 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career and then just fell off last year. And we started talking about buying the dip on Devon Achane. Like, there's so much upside for these guys that, yes, the offensive line can bring them down, but I'm not running away from them because of the potential failures of what could be a terrible offensive line.
Do you remember what that offense looked like last year behind a terrible offensive line? That's my fear, is that they revert back to just Tua's getting the ball out super quick, and he does it all the time.
But 2 players were awesome.
They were, but not everybody was awesome, and that includes Tyreek Hill. Tyreek was okay with Tua. He was okay, but he wasn't amazing. He wasn't himself.
We're up against the break. I got one more here. Buy or sell, the Giants will make the playoffs. And as a bonus, buy or sell, Dave is insane for buying this.
I am absolutely buying this. I think they're a wild card team.
Sell.
Yeah, it's a sell. But I love it, Dave. I love the enthusiasm. And I was trying to buy an Abdul Carter jersey for my son today, but couldn't find one. All right, we want to hear from you.
They didn't make it in Jets colors?
No. Plus, if I did buy it for him, he wouldn't be able to wear that plus a Giants hat on the same day unless it were game day, because those are the rules. We will be back with your questions from X when we come back on Fantasy Football Today. All right, we're going to take your questions now. This is from Turner. Drafting 7th in a 12-team half PPR league, would Christian McCaffrey as a first pick be crazy versus Nico or Neighbors, etc.?
Absolutely not. I actually love that, especially because it's a half PPR league, so the catches don't count as much for Nico and Neighbors.
Yep, I would agree. Take CMC.
Yeah, I mean, I bring this up, but McCaffrey averaged more points in 2023 than Barkley did last year. We know his upside. This is from Dan. A guy in my 14-team league started his draft Saquon, A.J. Brown, and Jalen Hurts. So 3 Eagles. Smart or stupid? Disclaimer, I am not that guy.
In a deeper league, you want to obviously do whatever you can to make yourself win. I would not do this, but if they all hit, he could potentially run away with the league.
I think, what do you think about this theory that if Saquon were to get hurt or something like that, it would only make Brown and Hurts better?
No question, but then you can say bye-bye to one of those 3 picks, and that's not optimal.
All right. Next question. Tyrone Tracy or Ricky Pearsall? In week 1, Pearsall's got Seattle. Tracy had Commanders.
I would start Pearsall.
Same.
Thank you, Robert. Next. From Riley, why is Baker ranked so high compared to guys like Dak and Purdy? Feels like Baker has a lot of uncertainty.
And it comes out in his ADP as well. Like, his average draft position is just so much higher. I think his upside is tremendous. Dak has it too. Purdy, I don't think has quite the same type of upside. But we saw last year, Baker was a top 5 fantasy quarterback. I can't rule out that it'll happen again.
Dak has offensive line issues. Purdy has receiving core issues. Baker has both, but we saw what Baker did last year, and I think he could come close to replicating that based on his situation.
All right. Thank you all so much for your questions. And that's going to do it for Fantasy Football Today. I want to thank you guys for watching and listening. We appreciate it. If you enjoyed the show, check out the Fantasy Football Today podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts. Thanks to Dave Richard and Jamey Eisenberg. And for those of you watching and listening, I'm Adam Azer. We'll talk to you next time on Fantasy Football Today.